Hello and welcome. You're listening to Is the Book Better, the podcast where we examine films and TV based on great literature to answer the question, is the book better? I'm Billy.
And I'm Adam.
Hooray! What's on the agenda today, Adam?
On today's episode, it is Watchmen, based on the book by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, and compared to Watchmen the film, directed by Zack Snyder.
Introduction accomplished. I like it.
Huzzah. Here's a high five.
Okay. I was thinking the best place to start if we're kind of going to be discussing Watchmen. It's got a huge plot that's overly complicated and kind of full of twists and turns. So
yeah, definitely.
This is probably a difficult question, but I'm going to challenge you. What's the plot of Watchmen, Adam?
The plot of Watchmen is about an alternate reality where superheroes are actually a thing. The main crux of the plot of Watchmen itself is some retirees, some ex-superheroes, band together over the murder of one of their former colleagues. And then, they try and find out who killed this guy. And turns out it's a bigger conspiracy than they could have thought. So. Excellent.
That was masterfully explained whilst avoiding spoilers at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite well done.
Unless you count events that happen in the first 10 pages spoilers or so. But yeah, sure. Maybe we should say from here on out, by the way, we're going to be talking very in depth about the book and said film, so there'll be spoilers. So if you are sensitive to such things, maybe read or watch the thing, then maybe come back later.
Yeah, that was the limit of our restraint, I think, and spoilers are going to start coming in.
From now.
Yeah. To be honest, the film came out in 2009. It's about...
It's like 8 years old now.
Yeah, the book was in the 1980s. It's long enough.
Yeah, definitely, it is long enough. There's your warning.
Now, the funny thing is, it's... We chose to do Watchmen just because we both really like it. But the more I've been thinking about it, the more I've realised that actually it's weirdly relevant at the moment. It's really well timed. There's whispers on the grapevine of a Watchmen TV series coming out.
I have a thing actually from Screen Rant saying, is John Cena teasing a role in HBO's Watchmen series?
John Cena, the wrestler.
The wrestler, he's apparently
from the memes.
Yeah, from the memes. He's apparently touted to play Dr. Manhattan.
Right.
Supposedly.
I'm not sure about that.
No, I'm not.
I've only ever seen John Cena in some hilariously bad movies.
So have I, yeah.
He's in the Fred movie.
Yes, I've not seen the Fred movie, by the way, but yes, he is in that. I think he plays his dad. But yeah, I've never seen him good in anything where he's actually acting. It's only him wrestling, which is actually not really.
I don't think if they were to make Dr. Manhattan all wrestly and fighty, then they're really grossly missing the point a little bit.
Yeah, Dr. Manhattan does not wrestle. He grows really big and tries to squish you, or he just
explodes you with his mind.
Yeah, that's how he rolls. He does not sweet chin music, or you can't see this, or whatever John Cena does. I don't know. I don't watch wrestling.
Oh dear. Well, I'll be excited to see what kind of a train wreck that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but just on his Instagram, he's put a picture of the smiley face with the blood on his eye. So apparently, he's teasing he's in it. I don't know.
Sweet. Well, weird. The other reason, of course, that the Watchmen is super relevant at the moment is that they've just released the Doomsday Clock first issue, which is a continuation of the Watchmen story.
Yeah, that's right.
Set 7 years on from the Watchmen's original continuity. So that's exciting for all the comic book nerds in the world. I've not read it myself. I don't know about you.
No, I probably don't intend to because I don't see the point. Really, that's something we can talk about later, but I don't need a prequel because there has been prequels to the comic and what have you, nor a sequel. I think it very much stands on its own.
So have you not read the Before Watchmen either?
No, have you?
No. I know a lot about them because my old housemate George was obsessed with Watchmen. He liked the Before Watchmen comics and he always told me they were great. But as far as I know, they're not written by Alan Moore.
No, they're not. And I consider that Watchmen to be his work, and anyone else touching it's just, especially from a comics perspective, because come on, Alan Moore's pretty much up there with the top writers.
He's the king of
for
comics.
that genre. So if he's got nothing to do with it, then I'm kind of not interested anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting that you've got that mindset because that exact mindset is what so many Watchmen fans seem to have. This idea that the graphic novel itself is so perfect and shouldn't be touched, and that's why Zack Snyder's movie is so polarizing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And why everyone's always said that Watchmen is just unfilmable. Is how it's been described so often.
Before that film, that is how it was described, that he was a madman, basically, because surely how can anyone adapt this into a film? Because there's just so many thematic elements going on. Just it is a groundbreaking piece of work for comics and graphic novels in general. How do you translate that into film and have the same effect that this did for that medium as it would do for film?
Absolutely. And I think when Zack Snyder was doing it I think he started filming in 2005, he was riding the coattails of all of his goodwill at the time. He just finished 300 and everyone actually still thought of him as a good director.
Yes, everyone thought of him as an okay director.
Yeah, he had his fans then. He hadn't really
300 was fine. I've not seen it in a long time.
It did really well. People loved that movie, man.
It got memed. People like it, sure.
So no, when he was attempting Watchmen, there was a lot of goodwill. There was a lot of people who were really expecting something spectacular, and it wound up being probably one of the most Marmite movies of all time.
Yeah, I would definitely say that.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we're going to discuss at length the reasons why, but general impressions. Where do you lean on the whole thing, comic or movie?
Oh, I'm pro comic.
Pro comic.
Sweet. Especially from reading it beforehand recently and then watching it a few days ago now. It's still relatively fresh in my mind. So,
well, look, I'm super glad that you're leaning to the comic book side of it because I have the slightly more rare opinion that I actually prefer. I think I prefer the movie, and you might convince me otherwise by the end of the conversation. But I like that we're attacking this from two different perspectives,
from two different fronts.
Because last time we did one of these, we basically just spent an hour and a half agreeing with each other.
Yeah, we did, which is fine, as long as there is a decent discussion going about. But okay, interesting, head to head. So when did you first read the book? I read this probably when I was about 15, 16, about that age. It got recommended to me by Mr. Chan. And he said, "Oh, you should read this." And I did, and I thought, wow, this is really, 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 really good. And read it again, probably not too long afterwards. And then I'm sure on that, he either recommended it to you or I did to you. I'm not too sure.
I read it because of your recommendation. It took me ages to get around to it. I think I read it in about 2012.
Yeah.
I'd seen the movie in 2009 when it came out because Dom bought it on DVD and we watched it after school.
Sure.
But it took me about 2 years after that to finally get around to reading the comic.
Oh, really? Okay.
I do remember devouring it in an entire night though.
Yeah, no, I did. I pretty much read it in one go just because I couldn't put it down. Really, I could not. An unput-downable book is what is used to describe as certain, like, Dan Brown or whoever else, but no joke, this was.
No, it was for me. I mean, I will admit that the first time I read it, I was a little bit lazy. And I skipped all of the kind of Minutemen long bits of...
Yes, no, I did as well, but I made a note to read those parts for this. In case you don't know, in between like the issues or chapters, there's a bit of in-world like text almost. So
yeah, and they're framed in different ways. So sometimes they're newspaper reports or psychiatric evaluations.
Yeah, or like an autobiography from an ex-superhero, that kind of thing, which is a really cool idea. I really like it quite a lot, and when it's used well, it comes across. It enhances the story in of itself. Yeah,
absolutely. And it was one of the groundbreaking things about this as a comic book was that kind of thing wasn't done in comic books at all back then.
Yeah, it took like the lore almost. I kind of don't like that word for this, but like the history of what is going on in this universe, like seriously, like really, really seriously. It wasn't just, Superman came from Krypton and now he's developed these powers for no particular reason. You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah, because of course one thing that Watchmen had to do that most comic books at the time didn't have to do was it had to establish itself an entire world from the get-go, whereas Batman and Superman had been going since the 40s and the 50s, and characters like that had been going for so long, their whole worlds were built up. Watchmen had to come along with in the middle of the 1980s. And set themselves up as though they had a world equally as expansive as all of these characters that has existed forever. And they really achieved that masterfully in the comics.
Yes, they do, definitely.
Now, I'd love to know what you reckon of this then, because this is my favourite thing about the movie is the way that they get around the absence of those moments of extended lore in the comic books. Obviously, in the film, they don't have time. They only have the story to tell. They don't have time.
Kind of the only thing they really put a lot of time into it is in the beginning. When after the comedian has been thrown out his penthouse, and it's after that bit, and it has like the flashbacks from like the 30s to like sort of Spectre and Hood of Justice, then comedian, like those little bits in between. But if you were to like not read the book and just watch that film for the first time, you would be confused. I would have thought. Yeah.
I wasn't when I first watched it.
I don't know, like
because what I saw was the American history. If superheroes were real, and that's all it was, because they had all the iconic moments. They had the moon landing, the Kennedy assassination, you know, all these things. But superheroes were lurking in the background.
Those bits I get, but like. For about, I'd say, 3/4 of what they're trying to establish, I don't think works necessarily. Because it's mostly just, like, costumed people standing around having their photo taken. Or, you know what I mean? There's just...
That's fair enough. I'm disappointed that you say that, though, because honestly, that's my favourite opening to a movie of all time.
Okay.
I always come back to it. It's Bob Dylan's Times They Are A-Changin' is the music, which is
it's a good soundtrack too.
Perfect soundtrack for it, because obviously it's that 60s kind of vibe and going over the political turmoils leading up to the Cold War, where the movie's set. And I do think that the lore, as you put it, is achieved better in Watchmen because they have more time to do it. But I think you have to give so much props for that to Zack Snyder for taking all that lore and being able to go, how am I going to do it? And putting it in the opening credits, and I'm going to make that work.
Sure, but at that point then, why have it in the film anyway? Like, surely just make it on the focus on the Watchmen. If I was Zack Snyder, I'd go, well, in the overall picture of this story, I may, for the sake of film being not as long and expansive as you say as the comic book, I would have cut those bits out entirely and just have it focus on the general Watchmen story in of itself, and not so much the 40s and 50s things, you know.
Okay, if that's your kind of stance on it, then do you agree with for the theatrical cut of the movie, they obviously took out the kind of pirate comic book adventure?
Yeah, it's not needed.
So you're kind of pro that?
Yeah,
dimension.
I am pro that, and it's good that he took it out, in all fairness, because if he did, then again, I think they'll just add to the confusion of the general, moviegoer, you know. But
yeah, because fans were quite divided on that. I personally, I agree with you that it's good that he took that out because. How can you put it in the movie without
justify
just breaking pacing so much?
Awful, terrible, grim pirate story in a film about superheroes. You know, it works to a more extent in the graphic novel than it would the film. You know, it would just be a juxtaposition. in the film.
But there are a lot of fans that do disagree and think that it's a complete injustice that was deleted, that it was a big part of the comics, and it's a shame to take it out.
No, I strongly disagree. It's fine to not have it in. I would even maybe to some extent the book itself just maybe doesn't need it in either.
Oh, right, so you just don't like it at all?
I would say don't like it. I understand why it's in there.
Yeah, because it's supposed to like mirror the story.
Exactly.
I was thinking about for the upcoming TV series if they were wondering whether they were going to maybe get that plot line in somehow.
Yeah, for a TV series, obviously it's a longer form of media, so yeah, sure.
But you know what I thought would be a really cool way for them to do it if they were to go down that route? Let's say it's a 12-episode series.
Yeah.
Watchmen was 12 comic book issues, so 12 episodes would work. What if episode like 1 to 10 was normal, and number 11 was just the pirate story? You think you've got Watchmen.
Yeah.
You turn your telly on, or you flick it on Netflix, and that episode 11 is just the entire pirate story.
Okay, sure.
And then
That reminds me of Preacher, how they adapted from the Western story of this character. I won't spoil it because I'm not going to spoil it, because we're spoiling Watchmen, not Preacher. But there's a part where it's in like the Wild West, essentially, and there's a character in it who becomes very critical later on in the main story of Preacher, which is more modern day setting, and that's kind of like how they did it, just one episode. Oh, a Western. You know, so yeah, I could definitely see that working, and it worked for that show and not.
Well, there you go. If it's been kind of done successfully in one thing, there's no reason why.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that could work. Just a random, because in a lot of TV shows and what have you, there is just a one-off episode, even if it is just completely removed itself from the story arc as a whole. You know, there's always that one. Oh, here's a weird episode we've done.
Yeah, totally. Well, the reason it came to me was because I was thinking about the South Park thing from way back in the day, like 90s South Park.
Yeah.
When they teased who Eric Cartman's dad was or something.
Yeah.
Left it on a cliffhanger, and you thought the next episode was going to be the reveal, and then it was a whole episode of Terrence and Phillip. And everyone was annoyed.
Okay.
Anyway, that's a massive tangent. Let's reel it back in.
Yeah, Watchmen, of course, gained quite a notoriety as well when Time magazine put it on their all-time 100 greatest novels. And it says 98 of 104, which is not 100. It's like the Time magazine can't count. It's all-time 104 greatest novels.
They're
of all
obviously
time.
literature experts and not maths experts.
Well,
Cut them some slack, Adam.
Sure, I guess so. I just thought I'd bring that up because I found that really, really weird. But yeah, Watchmen is a heart-pounding, heartbreaking read and a watershed in the evolution of a young medium. And yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is a very.
It completely redefined comic books. I mean, if you think about the time when it came out, it was the tail end of the Silver Age of comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the Silver Age is characterized by being like when comic books were really dumb.
Yeah, like Batman 1966.
Yeah,
it's that kind
really
of
campy,
thing. Yeah, it
silly. I know that I think that the comic book cover that sums up the Silver Age of comics is Superman getting a haircut from Jimmy Olsen. They've had to travel around space to make some scissors out of kryptonite because he can't get his hair cut with normal scissors.
Oh wow! I've not heard that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And that like sums up how daft the Silver Age of comics were.
Yeah.
And by the time Watchmen came around, people were just crying out for the grit back.
Yeah.
I think the three big events that did it, that brought the grit back into comic books and made them kind of darker and more thematic and atmospheric and violent, it was obviously Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
It was the death of Gwen Stacy in the Spider-Man.
Yep.
Continuity, and then more important than any of them, it was Watchmen.
Yeah.
Which was the one comic book that wasn't afraid to be just batshit insane. Speaking of batshit insane, maybe we should talk about some of the characters.
Yeah, sure.
Which ones are better in the film, which ones are better in the comic.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, actually. My favourite character in the film, since I'm more pro-comic than film, is comedian.
Oh, Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I think he's the best in that film by far.
I'd agree with you there. He is phenomenal, but
Yeah,
he's
great.
fantastic in everything. He's a stellar actor.
Yeah, no, he absolutely is. From before watching the film, I could remember scenes he was in still from watching it all those years ago. The other actors I could not at all. What Maton, Rorschach I do as well, actually saying that.
No, I would agree. I would agree with you though. Jeffrey Dean Morgan as the comedian was such perfect casting.
Yeah, I agree. And
scene-
second is Jackie Earle Haley as Rorschach. Those two definitely make it. But the rest of the cast for me just I don't know.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan's interesting, isn't he? Because he's like in so many different comic book adaptations. I think
But
he's the leader of the Losers.
That's right.
In the Losers film.
Yeah, that's right.
He's Negan in The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
He's Bruce Wayne's dad. He's Thomas Wayne in Batman vs Superman.
Right, yeah, sure, he is, isn't he?
I'll jump in on who was Naff then, and this is speaking as a fan of the film.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look at my cheat sheet here. Marlene Ackerman, who played the Silk Spectre.
Oh yeah.
She was terrible.
Yeah.
not as an adaptation, just
I think just her character as
what
well.
an actress, though.
Yeah. I don't think she had a lot to work with necessarily, which is a shame because I think when Laurie when she gets up with Daniel, when they have that romantic moment, it's very well clear and defined in the book how that came to be. You know, there are certain threads and themes, and there's enough of that intimacy they have, but that they're not too sure of each other at first when they first get together, and then that slowly evades over time. You can really tell that in the comic, and how eventually their relationship blossoms. In the film, it's literally just out of nowhere. She's just on top of Dan.
Yeah,
and he's
just
like,
having
I was
some-
trying to watch TV. And she's like, nah, we're going to have the sex. And he's go, well, I can't. I'm a bit impotent currently. Do you mind we go save some burning people from a burning building?
Yeah,
then I might get a stiffy.
he can only get a hard on if he's listening to Jeff Buckley sing Hallelujah. That's the only
that's right.
awkward Hallelujah sex is the only thing that gets him going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I love the song. I love the scene
It's a good
before
song,
it, but it
but
was
it's
one
bad.
of the awkward scenes of the movie. I must say.
And the only reason that they decide to break Rorschach from prison is just, fuck it, let's just do it, we're bored.
Yeah, it does seem in the film that the motivation for them to do that is just to move the plot forward.
Yeah, it's just because we can.
Yeah.
That's kind of the only reason Night Owl really gives, you know?
Yeah.
But again, in the comic, it's a bit more defined. They actually go back to his house and he's like, well, maybe we should, because there's something up to this, it's not right, and it's the complete opposite in the film.
Speaking of the prison escape scene, I've actually got a neat kind of anecdote about that that I thought was quite interesting. The scene where little small person dude and his big burly mates are wanting to bust into Rorschach's cell and basically kill him. In the movie, he puts his hands through, Rorschach ties his hands up, and then they chop his arms off.
Yeah.
With a circular saw.
Yeah.
It's completely different in the book. He actually gets his throat slit.
Yes, that's right.
And the reason he gets his throat slit is because they're not cutting into the cell with a circular saw. They're using a blowtorch. Which is why it's really weird that in the movie they don't change the dialogue from the scene.
Yeah.
So the little dude keeps on referencing the blowtorch. I can't wait to smell him cooking is one of the lines that he says.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, why are you saying that?
that
None of
with
you
a-
have a
with a saw.
blowtorch. Yeah, you're not going to cook him with a circular saw.
No, interesting way to make a steak though. I'll have to try that one day. Just get a saw out.
But I never noticed before. But when I spotted it, I'm like, that is a little bit weird that they didn't change the dialogue.
Yeah, that is curious. Also, like in the comic, at least it's a bit grim, but at least you're slitting the guy's throat before you cut into him. In the film, they just cut right into his arm.
Oh yeah, it's harsh.
Just for no reason. Sorry mate, do you mind? I've just got to have the decency to put him out of his misery at first. It's just a bit gratuitous. Was that to enable? Oh, he's actually a really bad guy. Don't be fooled by his stature or whatever.
Yeah,
Do you think that's why
it
they
probably
did that?
was to hammer home villain. This is
a villain.
But I mean, audiences are kind of able to infer that from the fact that they're in a prison trying to kill one of the main characters of the movie.
Yeah, and it was like, you put me away, Rorschach, you vigilante, you. No, that seems like a reasonable guy. Oh, wait, no, he just sawed through the arms of his mate.
It was an odd
guy.
change to make as well when you consider that the Zack Snyder chose to film Watchmen using the original comic as a storyboard.
Yeah.
And it's eerily exact. There's so many scenes that are shot for shot perfect from the page.
Definitely.
So it's a little bit odd that he chose to change a random detail like that. And there's a couple of instances of it, and it generally seems to be because he's got a bit of a bloodlust.
Yes.
And he's just introducing violence where there wasn't
Yeah.
initially. What do you reckon of that? Do you think that it's a little bit much in the film, or do you like that it's a bit bloodier and grittier?
See, they use in the film. They often use gore and blood effects, but terribly. Like, you can tell when it's an actual, like fake blood or what have you. You can tell when those are used. And if you use something like that, well, it can come across, obviously very effectively. But I noticed it, when Rorschach goes into the guy who kidnapped and killed the little girl.
Yeah, the pedo.
Yeah, that's
guy,
right.
Yeah.
And he has the guy, like, on his knees, like, tied him up. What have you, and in the comics, he lights a fire in the kitchen and he watches the house burn. In the film, he instead grabs a cleaver
and just hacks his head open.
away at his skull. And you could definitely tell at that moment, it's like fake, like photoshopped in blood.
Yeah.
Just splattering out, and it looks terrible. It would have looked terrible back then, and it looks even worse now.
Now, I think my take on that is I would agree with you that the effect looks a bit bad in that scene. I do prefer the idea of Rorschach murdering the bloke.
Damn.
Rather than leaving him, because the kind of whole idea in the comic book of him, he leaves him tied up in the burning building with a hacksaw so he can either burn to death or saw off his own arm.
Yeah.
So it's kind of Rorschach washing his hands of the whole thing, going, I'm not killing you.
Yeah.
I'm not sentencing you to death. I'm offering you the choice. I'm not a bad bloke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like the idea that comes in the movie when you see that Rorschach just fucking snaps and chops the dude up.
Sure, it gets the point across what he made earlier of, like, that's when, after this point is when I stopped leaving criminals alive.
Yeah,
This is the point where I killed them. Because they're too much of a danger to be out there alive.
Exactly.
The opposite of Batman, essentially.
Yeah. So even though I agree with you that in that scene the effects do look really, really dodgy, I do think it's actually a better scene in the film than in the comic, personally.
Okay. I'm not sure whether it's a better one, but I understand why it's that way
Yeah.
in the film. It makes sense to have it that way, just to, again, hammer that point across that this is the changed Rorschach from when he was beforehand,
Yeah. If we're doing dodgy moments of visual effects during the movie, there's more than a few.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And the one that really kind of still to this day makes me laugh. I don't know if this is in the director's cut or the original cut of the film.
Okay, I watched the original cut, so...
Right, I think it's the director's cut, but you know the scene when Ozymandias is in his big meeting building thing, and the bloke comes in to assassinate him.
Yes.
And one of his secretary lady is there, and she gets shot through the hand. And her fingers just fly off in every direction. Like, the bullet hits
hits the palm of your hand.
Yeah, like three of her fingers just all fly
like
off.
Firecrackers just evaporate off in the distance.
Well, the thing is, it would have looked fine in normal speed. But because Zack Snyder has a constant chub on for slow motion,
yeah.
You get that extra couple of seconds to notice how plastic the fingers look.
Yeah.
I think when Watchmen came out, because Zack Snyder's really the guy who brought stylistic slow-mo into the movies with 300 and everything.
Yeah.
And when Watchmen came out, I don't think anyone found it as daft.
No,
then as we
there's
do
been
now.
a big fatigue on that kind of thing now.
Yeah.
So
Because originally, like, especially there's some scenes where the slow-mo works so well and it's visually amazing. The two that stick out in my mind is the comedian being lobbed out the window.
Yeah,
And
that works well.
It's full speed all the way up until the window
Those
breaks,
hits,
and then it just slows down as it smashes.
Yeah, that is effective, definitely.
And the Vietnam scene, where Dr. Manhattan's just splattering people on the battlefield, and that's all in slow motion, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
How about all of the overly acrobatic fighting in the movie, and the fact that kind of these non-superpowered heroes are like Bruce Lee?
Yeah, there is a bit of that, like, hey, you can't touch this, essentially, you know, that they are ninjas in the film. But, I don't know.
Is it believable for them to be that good at fighting as people with supposedly no powers, do you reckon? Or because that is the central crux of it, is that these are just people, just men and women.
I mean, there's a certain style I think the film lends itself, at the very least, where I think it can get away with things like that, because it is urban and relatively realistic, but not really, in a sense. And I was not offended.
It is interesting then that when you say you prefer the comic, you still don't seem to have any problems with all the things that the film usually gets shit on for.
Well, like I say,
Because
my main problem is when you can. It's a lot to do with the writing. Honestly, like Zack Snyder's direction doesn't bother me too much because he knows when to draw from the comics themselves.
He knows what parts of the comics are powerful
Yeah.
and what can maybe be expressed a little bit better with film.
Yeah, and like, cinematography wise, it looks really pretty and what have you. So, yeah, I wouldn't say so much it's like fight scenes or the biggest issue I have in watching the film is the writing in general, to be quite honest, and the pacing. I think those two really they're the nails in the coffin, so to speak, you know what I mean?
Obviously the pacing is something that's put a lot of people off because the ultimate cut of that film is 3 hours plus.
Yeah, I couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
Could not watch it. That's too much of that film for me.
You see, personally, I love long movies, and I don't get bogged down with slow films like that. But maybe that's just because I've got more time on my hands than most people.
I don't know. Like I've seen the Lord of the Rings, like extended cuts and what have you. I've enjoyed them. I wouldn't say it's a case of I dislike long movies or anything like that. But yeah, the writing and the pacing of that film really bog it down for me in a big way, and I guess the visuals and acting as well. If that was on there for any much longer, I'd just become bored with it, really.
So when you say the writing, do you mean the actual dialogue? Because a lot of it is just lifted straight from the comic.
A lot of it is, but not all of it, and it's obvious where it's new stuff and when it isn't.
Yeah, so you're saying that it stands out. You can always tell.
You can definitely always tell when it's Alan Moore's writing or when it's whoever wrote it.
Fair enough. I mean, you're in good company, and you're kind of just your overall dislike for the movie, because Alan Moore is famously exactly the same.
Yeah. He's not credited on the film.
No, and that's not because of the film company being rude. He was obviously allowed to be credited.
Yeah.
It was a stubborn refusal.
It was him saying, "No, I'm fine."
Yeah, because
alright.
he hated the idea of the movie so much.
Yeah, as he does with all of his works,
Yeah.
like V for Vendetta or Swamp Thing or anything like that. He's very much the comic is the comic.
notorious
Leave it
for it.
alone.
Well, it's quite interesting. I did some research on what he's actually said about the Watchmen
Really?
movie
Okay, yeah,
specifically.
sure.
He's got one quote that's actually quite a reasonable observation, and he's got one that's just really fucking funny.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
So his funny one I found on a interview on YouTube. He says that he describes Watchmen as a grunting porno movie with occasional pretentious flourishes.
All right, yeah, I could see what he means by the grunting porno bit, because when what's their names? Silk Spectre and Night Owl, I'll just use their superhero names, are in Archie just getting it on. That's an incredibly awkward scene.
But I think what he actually meant when he said a grunting porno, I don't think he meant explicitly
Meant literally
sex.
that bit, no.
I think what he meant is that it's just so ostentatious, and the subtlety that existed in the comics has just been completely kind of, the violence is amped up to 10. So I think
it's all show and spectacle, no subtlety. It's
absolutely,
that's what he's saying.
His more kind of reasonable thing, and I really want to get your opinion on whether you agree with him on this. What he said about the Watchmen adaptation and comic book adaptations as a whole. He said, if we only see comics in relation to movies, then the best they will ever be are films that don't move.
As I said earlier, like this film, no matter how good it was not going to be the groundbreaking revolution as Watchmen was to the comic books as it would have been to films. And it isn't. It clearly isn't. No one, apart from us currently, is talking about Watchmen.
We are possibly
film.
the only people in the world who still care.
Yeah, we are.
No, I'll agree with you 1,000,000% there. like we said, the Watchmen comic came at a time when comics books were screaming for artistic change, and it revolutionised the medium of comic books. It's not often that you get a film that can do that anymore.
No, you can't.
It's really difficult.
You very rarely do.
Yeah, you can't smash the paradigms now or break the mould.
No.
So in that sense, Watchmen just came along too late.
And you could say now that films are being made more in a mould now more than ever. Definitely with mainstream films.
And definitely with superhero films.
Yeah, and very much so with superhero films. Absolutely. They're relatively kind of the same thing over and over again, except with a different coat of paint on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one thing I would say to the credit of the Watchmen movie is that if you take a look at superhero movies, the genre of superhero films, it's got to be one of the standouts.
You think it's one of the better superhero movies?
I don't necessarily mean that, although I would say that. What I mean is that it's one of the only superhero movies I can think of that doesn't fit into that bog standard superhero kind
you mean
of...
like it's not like a Marvel or a DC film, that kind of thing. It's its own weird superhero. Not even the superhero genre, would you say? Or is it not even that? It's just a...
I don't know, I just think that it's...
like an alternate universe.
It's one of the only kind of refreshing versions of a superhero story. It's,
sure.
You know.
But yes, it is very much different to like anything that the Marvel Cinematic Universe or
which has
DC
just become
one.
so cookie cutter.
Yes, it is essentially very much cookie cutter. What did you think about the ending with the film being the world turning against Dr. Manhattan versus the world in the comic books turning against a giant alien squid?
I've got two kind of separate opinions on it.
Sure.
One's a plot kind of based opinion, and the other's a execution based observation. So for the plot, the movie does it better in my opinion. It makes you've spent the whole story with Dr. Manhattan, understanding how much the world fears him and for what reasons. And for the plot, it makes so much more sense for Dr. Manhattan to be the catalyst that drives this change in the world that Ozymandias has manipulated, and it's literally a big blue Manhattan-style explosion. That makes more sense plot-wise.
Yeah.
For it to be a great big squid monster from a parallel dimension splatting into New York City is just out of the blue and bizarre to me. So film wins that round for which makes the most sense in the plot. If you're talking about execution, hands down the comic book. Because when you get to those pages and when you get to that reveal, and there's just that fabulous artwork, just huge spread pages. I think it's 6 pages of nothing
it is
but
6
the
pages
carnage.
of just a massacre.
Yeah, it's absolutely mesmerising, and it really packs a punch. Whereas in the movie, it's just another big city explosion.
It's just another special effect.
That ends in a big white screen that we've seen a million times, and we're so numb to it. We see buildings getting knocked down on TV for breakfast now.
Yeah.
You know, and you've just spent the whole movie watching people get their arms sawn off and deep fat fryers chucked on the head.
But there's no gut punch to it in the film. There really isn't. Not at all.
All the wind's taken out the sails.
Sure.
I'm judging by your expression that you probably agree with me on that.
To an extent, I think it's a good idea. It's a good because I think any good adaptation for someone who's read something to them, watching the version of it, obviously you know the main plot details bit by bit. So having something that subverts your expectations is a good twist, not just for the audience who have not read the original source material, but obviously for the people who have. It could be a cool, clever trick to pull off, and
the intention ideally is to give the fans a surprise that doesn't break the story they love.
Yeah, essentially. See, I think it does break the story in some ways. Definitely for the comedian's aspect, and how he was working for the government, and then how he came to realise what was really going on. I don't think that is executed very well at all in the film. Whereas in the book, it's done a lot better.
Yeah.
And you can see his reasons as for why he freaked out at the end and went to Moloch's apartment, had that breakdown. In the film, it just becomes just a weird side point.
Yeah.
Almost. And because if you don't have those events, obviously you don't get Ozymandias throwing him out of his penthouse and for the whole chain of events to start. So without that justification, it becomes a little lost for me, or it would be, if you know what I mean. And
so you're saying the comic actually sets up the anticipation of the ending
the comic
better?
sets up, definitely. And you can see, these chains of events happen because of this reason, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you there, because they do have the kind of the comedian's breakdown, crying scene and everything in the film, but they feel uncontextualised.
Yes, definitely so. There's no real justification for it. It's just kind of a scene that happens and we're supposed to somehow connect the dots, but in this it's very clear as to why you should. And it kind of betrays the comedian's character almost, I think, in the film as compared to the comic book. It just... And on a more nitpicking note, like, I am no scientist or what have you, but the way in the film they detect Dr. Manhattan destroys New York City and London and all these other cities is because they can tell the particles in the air are from Dr. Manhattan. Is that a reasonable thing scientists that can do? They can go, oh yes, this radiation is from this thing or that thing or what have you. Like, again, I'm no scientist, but to me...
I'm no scientist
that came
either,
across
but...
to me is really like, wow, that was a giant fucking leap. Really.
No, you are right. Realistically, no, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't tell, let's say it's a hydrogen atom.
Yeah.
You can't tell one from another.
Yeah, surely
You
not.
can't go, this hydrogen atom is flavoured
from...
just like Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, exactly.
It's slightly bluer.
It's like,
It's got its dick out. It must be...
It must be Dr. Manhattan. So yeah, there's that aspect to it as well. But yeah, initially, like, I think that is a good idea to have the world turn on Manhattan. But I think how they executed that was poor, and I think how Ozymandias in general in the film comes across as poor.
Ozymandias was really neutered as a character.
Yeah,
And I think the best representation of that is the nonsensical change of his costume.
Yeah.
I'm not usually one to harp on aesthetics, and like superheroes all look like dickheads. They're all wearing spandex. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So usually I don't get my knickers in a twist about the costumes of heroes and stuff. But that change bothers me because he looks... Obviously, he's named Ozymandias because he's got this kind of Egyptian kind of obsession.
Yeah.
That's why he's wearing like the tunic and the golden stuff. And then they put him in the movie in this kind of...
I don't know.
Joel Schumacher Batman.
Yeah. He has the bat nips.
He does have the bat nipples.
Yeah, the bat nipples,
and the plastic costume with chiseled in abs. And it's just so wrong.
It is weird, isn't it? Yeah.
You know, he's the only one who I'd say has a bad costume in the movie, actually. And it's written... I think that just that visual representation is a perfect analogy for how they just kind of get his character ever so slightly off.
They definitely get it pretty off in the film.
And the thing is, the whole crux of the book is that Ozymandias essentially commits an atrocious crime.
Yeah.
And you're asked to decide for yourself.
Is it justified?
Yeah, can you forgive him for what he did? Can you understand it? Based on the film, I'd say no, he's a knob.
Yeah.
Based on the comic book, I'd say actually maybe.
Yeah.
Because you get more of you get a sense that he's felt more of the weight of his of what he's done from the comic. So maybe that's just by virtue of spending more time with the character.
Sure.
But you definitely feel more sorry for him.
Yeah.
And you don't have any sympathy for his smug face in the movie.
No, he just comes across as just a really smug, pompous prick.
Although that is Matthew Good just has that kind of face.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think I've seen him in anything else, honestly, apart from.
I have seen him in something else. I can't remember what it is now. But yeah, he's actually a pretty good actor, but he's got a very punchable face.
Okay, fair enough.
Here's one for you then. Speaking of direction and everything, my favourite scene in the comic by a million miles, and the one that was always going to be the most challenging to translate into movie and for Zack Snyder to pull off, was Dr. Manhattan having his little cozy getaway session on Mars, chilling out.
His, like, clockwork, like...
Yeah, singing Let It Go and making his
thing.
big castle.
Yeah, sure.
What did you make of that? Which is better?
Like, it's cool to see it on film from the comic in of itself, though, again, here's another nitpick of mine.
We should have a section. We should leave them all to the end, and we should have like a little theme music for you.
Yeah, it goes Adam's
nitpicks. Yeah.
In the comic, I will get to a page where it's on it, but yeah, in the comic, when he makes his clockwork thing appear.
Yeah, his big Fortress of Solitude.
Yes, his Fortress of Solitude-esque thing appear. See, right on that, he's floating, and then bits come up, seamlessly.
Yeah.
In the film, it's erupting out of the ground.
Yeah.
So there's no... this is difficult to explain verbally without the use of imagery. But in the film, it's like it's already underneath the surface of Mars, and it comes up.
Yeah.
So like you get all the rubble and everything else.
It literally is like a buried castle erupts.
Yes, and it comes from. But in the comic, it is seamless.
Yeah.
So it's like he's creating it from underneath, and it's nothing that's been buried. Essentially, he is from the surface is creating this object.
I think
that
what's
appears.
implied is that he's literally converting the molecules around
him to make the structure, whereas in the film it looks like, oh, he buried a weird clockwork thing for laters.
He saved it there for the time he needed. Next time he had a big Mardy cancer breakdown and needed to piss off to Mars for a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
He's buried a castle.
And I know that it's very nitpicky, but it's just that's how it comes across to me.
No, I get what you're saying, because it kind of exemplifies the mindset of both, doesn't it? The comic book being this subtle kind of understated way of getting information across, and Zack Snyder's movie just being pow, castle, earthquake, castle.
Yeah, that is a good analogy to make, actually, just between the two things. Weirdly, that this is more of a subtle way you can piece things together, and the film is just, we don't have time, effects, we've got to keep people entertained.
But then maybe I just don't appreciate subtlety or something. But I like in the movie that it just kind of bursts out the ground, because it looks freaking brilliant.
No.
And it's just a visual treat to see.
I'm not. No,
fair enough.
It takes away the whole point. Well, not the whole point, but a bit of a point from Manhattan's character, I think, to have it do that. As weird and idiotic as it sounds, that's my opinion.
Sometimes it's the minor gripes that bother you more.
Yeah, it is.
So on that scene, there's something that I've been dying to bring up.
Sure.
And this is the closest I'm going to be able to come to a decent segue into it.
Yeah, go for it.
So I only found this out the other week. The scene on Mars ends with the conversation between Dr. Manhattan and Laurie Silk Spectre. And then it pans away and you see a big shot of Mars. And one of the craters on Mars, I don't know if you ever noticed, there's a big crater with a big smiley face in it, like the smiley face logo. Yeah. It's a really cool motif. And it's the same in the movie as All Along the Watchtower starts playing. Pans out and you see the big smiley face crater on Mars. I thought that David Gibbons, the artist, had just drawn that in because it looked good. But there actually, honest to God, is a legit great big smiley face crater on Mars.
Oh, is there really?
Yeah, genuinely.
Okay.
It's not made up for the comic books. It's really there, and if you want to give it a Google...
I will give it a Google.
Have a look, it's fascinating. It's a perfect smiley face crater. Occurred just naturally, entirely by accident.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see it.
How mad is that?
Yeah, that's cool. I did not know that. But yeah, I just thought that was imagery.
Yeah.
What was being used for the comic and what have you, and then later the film. Yeah. Because there is a lot of imagery used in this book. But yeah, okay, That's cool.
I just thought that was really awesome.
No, that's cool. That has given me a greater appreciation of it. So yeah, fair
Well,
enough.
I looked into it more and more, and apparently that was the reason they chose the smiley face as the logo.
Ah, really? Okay.
Yeah, they had that scene planned from the very beginning and thought that that would make it all come together.
Yeah. Oh.
Because originally the logo was going to be a big yellow clock,
Ah, right. Okay.
which
yeah,
is
for
also a
the
motif
doomsday clock
that you
for-
see around.
Yeah,
Yeah. While we're still on Mars,
of course.
we could talk a bit about Dr. Manhattan's character.
Yeah.
How he was kind of adapted from one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that he's quite a successful version in the film, or?
I think he's relatively successful. Sure. I think you would have to characterize Dr. Manhattan in some aspect of the film because he's such an alien character. So from him to be a human, which they referenced before, it is explained how he became to being Blue Naked Man. You would need some reason as to you would need the leap from human to Blue Man, you know? So yeah, so what they have in the film is just a short, condensed version of what they have in the book.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, he's caught in an accident.
Yeah,
in an
physicist in
atom
an
smasher.
experiment, antimatter, he evaporates, then slowly reappears a few days later in bits by bits by bits.
Yeah, there's a random circulatory system appears in a cafeteria and then
Yeah.
vanishes and then back again. And
yeah. I think what they do with him in the film is effective enough.
One thing they did take
Really.
out that I don't think they should have taken out is in the comic book he explains the logo on his head.
I was just going to get to that. Yeah.
He actually explains
Yes,
it
he
is a
does.
hydrogen atom.
Yes,
it's
that's
one.
right.
It's an atom
Because
and
they
one
want
electron.
him to have the more common, like 6 rings around
the nuclear
nucleus.
thing. Yeah.
That's right. Not a scientist, just to be clear. We don't know science.
I don't think we'd fool in anyone.
No, we're not. But yeah, that bit is explained, and I agree with you absolutely.
It would have been great for people to know that.
To know that, because there is just a bit in the film, because Zack Snyder thought, oh, we've got to have this bit of the film, it's iconic. It's just Dr. Manhattan, like, searing into his forehead, a circle, and then 2 dots. That's all it is, it's never explained.
Yeah.
Like, why does he do that? It's just, no, he's just having a tattoo on his forehead for
Yeah,
no
and listen,
reason.
also, if we're going to get really nitpicky,
I like
why
that.
does he have to burn it into his forehead with... Why has he got a blowtorch on his finger, first of all?
Yeah.
Why does he burn it into his forehead? This is a bloke who can think and transfer
Just
atoms.
rearrange atoms.
Yeah, surely
however
all
he
he has
feels.
to do is, like,
Just go-
concentrate and it appears
And
on
it
his
appears,
head.
yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
No, I agree with you. It's dumb. It's dumb, and it just comes out of nowhere.
Also, he's got his knob out in the movie a whole lot more.
A whole
than
lot
in
more than the comics, yeah. Is that to be...
I think it's just to be edgy.
Or is it to be like, oh, there are naked women here, but also a naked man, so it's equal gender nakedness equality? Is that what it's going for? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a bit. It's a bit weird though, isn't it? Because generally speaking, like boobs and bums are okay in movies.
Yeah,
But
the penis.
willies and
Whoa.
and vaginas don't really happen in films.
No, they
right?
don't. Can't remember what the actual TV term is for it, but it's like if the penis is further up than this island off the coast of Scotland, which is I don't know the name of it, but that is apparently what they base it off of, then it can't be shown on TV. If it's underneath that level, then it's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
But generally
Mull of
speaking,
Kintyre test, that is what it's called.
so it's literally that
That.
it can only be a bit erect.
Yes, it can only be
You can only
Mull of Kintyre erect. If it's any further than that, it's not allowed.
Right. So you're only a maximum like 60% chub.
Not even that. I think 30% chub. It's got to be 30 or less.
There's a Paul McCartney song called Mull of Kintyre, and I love that song, and it's just been
ruined-
spoilt for me forever.
Ruined. Sorry, mate.
Oh, well, that's upsetting.
That's apparently what that
That's
is
my
about.
favourite thing I've learned today, though. That's
there you go.
absolutely brilliant.
There you go.
But no, what I was going to say is the thing that gets me is like the only reason that's the most cock in any movie is what I'm saying.
It's
That's
a lot.
not a porno movie.
Yeah.
And the only reason it's allowed is because they painted it blue. I think they think Blue Willy doesn't count.
yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but he's.
It's like,
But
is that literally?
he's passed the Mull of Kintyre test, though.
Oh yeah, he's floppy.
Yeah, he's a dangly sack.
He's a shower, not a grower.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh no, it's a weird thing to complain about.
It
and
is.
honestly,
It
I
is a
don't
strange
care
thing.
that much. I just think it's at a certain point it's unnecessary, isn't it?
Yeah, well, was it the actors wing wang or was it a CGI wing wang they wing wanged him?
I'd love to know actually.
I'm
'Cause
curious.
maybe he insisted.
Maybe I'm gonna look.
Maybe he just really wanted to have his pants off all the time.
Shut up.
He's just a notorious pervert.
No, they've got to see my blue penis.
Oh, we're dragging poor Billy Crudup's name through the mud now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Just like he dragged his dick through the film.
Yes. But yeah, I was confusing the actor and the character earlier. It's John who's the character, Billy's the actor.
That's right.
Title, In Defense of Dr. Manhattan's Penis. From Movie Chop Shop. It's people complaining. They go, no, it's fine. Which, yeah, sure, whatever.
I mean,
there are worse things on film, essentially,
Yeah.
to put up than a man's penis.
No, absolutely. It doesn't bother me massively.
Nah, whatever.
I just think it's a bit weird that they did it. It seems so unnecessary.
I mean, it's in nature to Manhattan's character because his character is I don't really give a fuck.
yeah.
Then he later realised, wait, I do give a little bit of a fuck, actually, to not let this happen.
Oh dear. It's got to be a challenge segueing from this weird tangent onto anything remotely intelligent.
Anything else. Yeah, you're right.
I'll tell you what we've not
Actors
talked
portrayed-
about.
Yeah, go for it.
Once again, only learnt this in my little bit of research today. All of the characters from Watchmen are based from existing characters from the Charlton comics.
Okay.
So I've not written them all down, I don't remember them all, but for instance, Rorschach is based on The Question, who you've probably heard of and seen.
Yes, I have.
Dr. Manhattan is based on Captain Atom.
Right, yeah, okay.
And apparently, as the story goes, they were originally, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons were writing the comic books for Charlton Comics using those characters, and got a better offer from DC and decided to basically pinch the designs a little bit and write Watchmen. They did it for two reasons. They wanted to write for DC rather than Charlton Comics.
Yeah.
They also wanted to be unhampered by continuity.
Okay,
So they didn't want to have to pay attention to the backstory of the existing characters from
Right.
Charlton Comics.
Yeah.
So they chose not to do it for Charlton Comics, not use those heroes, but make their characters based off of Charlton Comics characters. It's the only reason it all winds up being quite funny is because, ironically, Charlton Comics went completely bankrupt and closed down in 1986, the year that
it came out.
Watchmen came out. So Watchmen basically single-handedly closed down a business.
Nice one, Watchmen. Well done. With the more like newer Watchmen stuff we touched upon at the beginning, it's weird that these newer comics are going into DC now. So you're going to have like Manhattan, Rorschach, and whoever else be alongside Superman,
the Flash.
Batman, Flash, etc. Whereas they're kind of just referenced in this as just being silly, stupid,
It's weird, isn't it?
superhero things, and now they're coming into the DC canon as these characters. It's
You see,
bizarre to
I'm
me.
anticipating there's going to be a big disagreement between me and you again on that.
Sure.
I understand the reasons people aren't thrilled about this is because obviously Watchmen in many ways is a pastiche and a parody of
Yeah, it
Superman
is.
and Batman.
It really is, yeah.
But the great big fangirl in me just can't get away from the fact that I am absolutely buzzing to see it, and I really want to see Superman fight Dr. Manhattan. I really want like Rorschach and Batman to have a moral debate. I'm so excited to see the crossover. It's gonna be
Sure.
really cool, and like
Sure.
I know that from an intellectual, like literary point of view, I should be against it because it's not
Yeah.
what Watchmen represents.
Yeah.
But I don't care. I love the characters, and I really think that the crossover's gonna be sick.
Sure. You have more faith in that crossover than me. I would love it to be great. Absolutely. Like, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want things to be brilliant and
Yeah.
amazing? You know, you'd be silly not to. But I don't have faith they could do it well. And I just won't touch you with a
Oh, don't get me wrong. It's gonna be a challenge to do it right.
Yeah, I do not pity the people or the team or what have you who will be doing that. It's insane.
Yeah,
to me.
and I don't know how well it's going so far because I've avoided looking at anything about the first issue of Doomsday
Yeah,
Clock.
I've no idea.
Avoiding spoilers like the plague because I do intend on actually going to Forbidden Planet at some point and buying a copy and following the series as it comes out. I don't want to be spoiled.
Yeah.
I did read DC Rebirth though.
Okay.
Have you read that yet?
No, I know of it, but
Right, so that's where they first teased it. So
Okay.
basically the whole story pans out, and at the very end Batman is walking through kind of like a dark, kind of dimly lit corridor kind of thing, and pulls this thing out the wall, and it's the smiley face Watchman badge.
okay, sure, yeah.
And he's like, the fuck is this?
The fuck is this?
Yeah.
Swear back.
And obviously any comic book fan's like, oh my god, how?
Yeah, okay, sure.
Basically, I think how they're doing it is that it's because the Rebirth was what they used to reset the New 52.
Yeah.
You'd-
I've read more of the New 52 than I have Rebirth.
I was really into. I loved the New 52.
Yeah, I really like the Batman one by Zack Snyder.
I thought the New 52 was fantastic, but a lot of the fans were against it. So they used Rebirth to kind of reset, get rid of the New 52, put the heroes back to how they were before Flashpoint, and all that kind of thing. And that's how they're explaining that now that the universe has been reset, it's collided with the Watchmen universe and kind of accidentally mixed together.
Dr. Manhattan particles are invading the Rebirth universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I understand that that's going to sound like word salad to anybody who's not a big comic book fan. But yeah, it's
I'm curious about it, but I'm not sure how motivated I will be to actually seek out and read it, depending on people's whose opinions I trust. Like, no, this is actually pretty good. Like, considering what this is actually really good. If they say it's that, then I probably will. If not, then I will forget about it and go.
Yeah, well, look, I'll let you know because I'm going to be buying a copy on my first payday.
Yeah.
I'll be picking up a copy of it straight away.
You go for it.
Now, I'm cautiously optimistic, extremely hopeful. Although I have had my hopes dashed by these kind of things a few times.
Yeah, I don't know how amped up I can get for anything like that anymore. You know, like. My optimism and enthusiasm has been drained and defeated and beaten up and left in an alley to slowly bleed out into the drain, forever not being able to.
Well, look, that's a fantastic segue into what I really want to talk about next, because I can't. We will talk more about Watchmen, but I need to get this out because I can't have a conversation about superheroes and comic books and Zack Snyder adaptations without having at least a little 5-minute whinge about Batman vs Superman.
Go for it. I will whinge some things with you.
And I know it's not relevant anymore, so maybe it's going to be more of a Justice League-esque.
Yeah, go
whinge.
For it.
But I think the thing that I wanted to talk about is, do you think that, are you getting superhero fatigue now?
Yes, definitely. I've not seen the last several superhero films that have come out. Like, the last one I went to see at the cinema was The New Guardians, which I thought was good. But
that was in May.
Yeah, like April, May.
Yeah.
That came out. But yeah, and like I've not seen New Spider-Man or anything. I'm missing bits and pieces from the Marvel cinematic stuff.
Yeah.
I've not seen the new DC Justice League one. And yeah, and at this point, I'm not that enthused about seeing it either.
No.
Not just from film reviews or anything else like that, because that got really good reviews, and things I've heard about that would make me want to see that film, but yet I haven't gone out my way to see it.
To be honest, Thor's the only one that I would really encourage, like, make an exception, make the effort, because that one is really good.
Sure.
But all the other ones you've mentioned that you missed this year, Spider-Man, Homecoming, you don't need to see that.
I don't care.
It's the same. It's another Justice League. Just don't give any more money to those people. we need to put a stop to what they're doing. I think this needs to end. Even Guardians of the Galaxy 2, bearing in mind that Guardians of the Galaxy is like probably one of my favourite comic book movies ever.
Yeah, I really like the first one. Really, really liked
Wasn't blown away by that sequel.
I preferred it slightly more on a second watch that I did relatively-ish recently. I thought it was good, but it still didn't blow me away like the first one did.
But no, I really think that the bubble is about to burst on the superhero movies.
Definitely.
Really,
I think Justice League is the bearer of that talk.
It's mental, isn't it? Because the Justice League movie is considered a commercial and critical failure, even though it made like $96 million on its opening weekend.
Yeah.
That's considered
that's not enough.
Dog shit. It's supposedly done seriously badly, which is mental to me.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's like, how can that much money just be not that successful?
Yeah, how can $96 million not be considered?
Like, oh yeah,
good.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose because the budget was
$300 million was the budget, and
plus
for Hollywood films, it's budget plus that same amount, roughly, like times 2 or 2.5, maybe a bit under, more, depending. But it's so really the budget would be $600 million.
Yeah, when you factor in
if you
for
were to apply that rule for
and
advertising and
promotion.
stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. And the box office, according to Wikipedia, via Box Office Mojo, is $567 million.
Ouch! So they've not broken it.
So yeah, if you were to apply the times 2 rule for budget and marketing and stuff, it is still under.
So they're unlikely to make a profit until DVDs come out, basically.
Yeah, we'll see, because it is still Sunday and they update it on the following day. So
yeah, because it's still in the pictures as of when we're recording this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, if it gets updated, then after this weekend we'll see. But it depends on the decline, obviously.
Yeah.
Of how
I don't think there's anyone left who's excited to go and see it. I think all the people who were buzzing about it came and had the heart broken nice and early.
Yeah. Or if they're still in that mindset of, no, we've got to support them, we're off seeing it 6 times. They've seen it 6 times. And that's it. They can't justify a 7th time because the Green Lantern's not in it.
Is that you're talking about how there's this group of people?
The 6 for 6 thing? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole group of super fans who have all agreed unanimously to go and see the Justice League movie 6 times each to try and ensure that it makes a profit and kind of saves the franchise.
Save your money, like people
$60 £60 that'd be.
Yeah, like save money, like have a mortgage and like go on holiday or something. Like if you're that film ingrained, see a few like films that probably wouldn't do that well, you know. Because
the DCEU is not going far after this now.
No, they're a very, very rich corporation. I think they're going to be fine. Warner Brothers do okay for themselves. Like, they're not desperate. They're really not. None of these companies are.
So here's a question then. If, as we've kind of established in our possibly very biased opinion, the bubbles burst on superhero movies. The age of the kind of superhero phenomenon is dying out.
Yeah, like I'm not bothered about Black Panther. Is that the next Marvel film? Yeah, not really bothered about that. Nor Aquaman, the next DC one.
But anyway, no, what I was going to say is, if we've kind of unanimously agreed that maybe the superhero genre is at the very least in peril, there's a Watchmen TV series coming around. Do you reckon that might be the thing to shake things up and maybe revitalise it, maybe be a repeat of what the comic book was, and present it in a new way that revitalises our interest?
I mean, if they flaming hire John Cena as Dr. Manhattan, I can't really see that, to be quite honest. If that's the level of casting they're going for, then no. Definitely not.
I don't believe that for a minute. I think that's a troll.
It could be. It absolutely could be. But if that's actually
no, you're right. If they cast John Cena as Dr. Manhattan, then it's dead. They
I'm
will
like,
kill superhero.
okay, I'm not watching that. But
oh no, listen, I'll watch it. I'll watch the hell out of that because that'll be a beautiful disaster.
No, depends how. I mean, I want it to be good. Things should be good, but you know, like the Dark Knight trilogy, that brought like a new angle that people could take on the superhero genre.
Well, it's the Dark Knight trilogy. Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy proved that you could take superheroes seriously.
Yeah.
Just like Watchmen proved that with the comics. He proved that in film. Unfortunately, I think that it's Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy was the cause for what's become DC's downfall of taking things too seriously.
Yeah.
When Warner Brothers saw that Nolan could make a really intelligent and insightful and artistic film out of Batman, they basically commanded Zack Snyder to do the same.
Yeah.
And were wound
Zack
up
Snyder
with...
is not as competent as
Well, look,
Christopher
yeah,
Nolan.
he's no Christopher Nolan.
No, he isn't.
So what we've wound up with is mopey Superman, miserable Justice League, everyone's
Yeah.
confused and, you know...
Well, it's Justice League at an old people's home. Everyone's just angry.
Yeah, murderous Batman. Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
For all the good that Nolan did for superhero movies,
Yeah, no.
he's also ruined them.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the same for the Watchmen TV show, then. If it is good, and I've got, oh, maybe we'll do that. It's in cycles. People will take one good idea, what's happened, and try and copy it, and develop those themes and
suck
ideas.
the life out
and
of
yeah,
it.
essentially suck the life out of it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's what will happen anyway, even if it's good. Or,
Yeah, no, that you're right. As soon as something unique and interesting happens, the media industry dogpiles it.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, we need our own version of this. Who can we get on the phone to do this?
well,
very
yeah, I
quickly?
mean, I suppose it's just like how everything has to be a cinematic universe now.
Yeah.
Marvel started it and did a masterful job and really accomplished it, and then all of a sudden Ridley Scott's making an Alien universe, Warner Brothers are making Universal are making a Monsters universe.
I thought they were. I don't know if they are anymore, but
Probably
yeah.
cancelled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We in the last podcast that might or might not come out, we were talking about the bit of bloody Agatha Christie verse.
Yeah, I know. What the hell? That's just depressing. They're doing, they're thinking of doing a James Bond cinematic universe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to make a cinematic universe of Paddington next. That's going to be the next thing. Paddington 2's doing really well. Like, oh, we need it.
It honestly wouldn't surprise me at this
Probably
point.
not.
Oh dear.
Like a children's character book cinematic universe. Paddington teams up with Peter
Hey, tell you
Rabbit.
what, though, that should be the next episode.
What,
Paddington?
No,
No?
it's not. We know what the next episode is. It's not Paddington.
Oh dear.
Right. Are we going to answer the question, or would you like to bring up anything else?
The only thing got left is before we started recording, you dropped a bomb that I did not know about you, that you starred in a play about Watchmen or something.
I completely forgot about this.
I need to know this story.
Yeah. A bit of backstory about me. For my undergrad, I originally did English and theatre, and for the piece we did for theatre, we had a guest director come in, and as we were doing this, and then about halfway through his tenure of him being a guest lecturer or what have you, he's like, right, gonna do this play based on Watchmen. And from having read Watchmen, I was like, what the fuck?
That's really sick.
That's stupid. How the hell are you going to do this? But whatever, went with it, had no choice really, couldn't get out of it even if I wanted to. And there's this bit here, which I'm going to point to you, which I have bracketed and underlined, and that's a bit where I had to read out, it's the Under the Hood, the first chapter of it, and I had to read that out in a microphone very, very close to it, so I was like this, and I had to read it out to everyone in the audience in this kind of weird breathy voice for no particular reason. And I also, because it was a bit devised piece, so everyone was kind of playing different characters, or rather everyone was playing every character but in different scenes, if you know what I mean. And I remember being Dr. Manhattan in one bit where
Did he have to get in your birthday suit?
No, I didn't have to get my birthday suit.
You had
Thank
to
goodness.
whip your mull of kintyre out.
No, I did not whip my Mulligan tire out. No, I did not. But no, what the poor people I were with, because this is the only bit it's when it's essentially, I can't remember the bit specifically, but it's when Dr. Manhattan is floating down, and he's floating down to the ground. So in order to recreate that bit for the audience, people had to lift me up by the feet, kind of above their heads, sort of, and then slowly lower me down, whereas I tried to keep my balance and look graceful and Dr. Manhattan.
And I know you
as I
quite
was
well,
doing
Adam.
so.
You're not the most well balanced.
No,
man.
I'm a clumsy oaf. And not very elegant nor graceful.
It does sound like a weird one for him to choose.
Yeah, and it was not even. Thank God, it wasn't even the whole thing, which is a blessing, really. It was only like the first two or three chapters, I want to say.
Yeah.
So it dealt more with the origin stories of each of the characters. I think that's just what he was trying to portray out onto the stage. But if you take just those origin stories removed from the rest of the book, it's just some random characters.
Just
who
a
are
whole
now
lot of nonsense.
superheroes. Yeah, it's a whole lot of nonsense, absolutely. And that's what it seemed to me when performing it, and I'm pretty sure to the rest of my castmates.
Yeah, I mean, on the
who
one
were
hand,
with.
it's cool that he's obviously got good taste in literature and everything. He's chosen a cool thing, but I mean, we've been talking about the challenges of converting such an amazing graphic novel onto a movie.
Yeah.
That's nothing compared to try and translate it into a play. It just wouldn't work.
It just wouldn't work.
You physically couldn't do it.
You don't have the enough sets to do it, nor enough probably costumes, nor people really to do it. There's
There's certain things that lend themselves very well being turned into plays. Watchmen is not one of them.
Like, who decides, Watchmen, that'll be a play, that'll be great. Like, you just can't. Like, I don't know where he was coming from.
The scale of it is just too grand.
Yeah, it is too grand of a thing to put on a stage with people and then cardboard, like, scenes and scenery and what have you. It's bizarre. It's like a fever dream to me now. Like, I can remember bits and pieces of it, but I'm like, that didn't happen. I'm like, oh no, wait, it did. There are other people I know who are in that fever dream with me. It's awful. But yeah, this book has got like several tears and pages creased and what have you, because there was just a scene in it, not at all related to the source material at all in the comic book, but there was just a scene. Director decided, just throw your books on the ground repeatedly. So we just standing up, just threw our books to like the other side of the stage. And then we stood up, got over to the books we've thrown, and then thrown to the other side.
Was he trying to do a Dead Poets Society? He was trying to be one of the cool, wacky, weird, outside the box teachers.
Probably.
There will be no learning in my classroom, only feelings.
Yeah, like he was like a guest lecturer because he directed some stuff and beforehand. So I
sounds like a bit of a loon.
Yes, a loon. All theatre lecturers and directors are loons.
Well, I mean, there's no need to ask the question of whether the play was better.
No, the play was not better than the book. The book was definitely better than that.
How about the book compared to Zack Snyder's attempt? Alan Moore versus Snyder, who won?
Alan Moore. No hesitation, Alan Moore.
I've not managed to change your mind at all.
No, Zack Snyder does a somewhat admirable job, despite, I don't know, like acting and a lot to do with pacing and what have you, and the writing, when it's not Alan Moore's stuff, is very clear and it comes across as really, really bad, in my opinion, and it can make a lot of characters come across as really muddled and confused in the end, and it's a pretty mess. It's
a beautiful disaster.
A beautiful disaster. It's a Jackson Pollock painting. That's what the Watchmen the film is, whereas Watchmen the book is a very concise piece of work that had a message to say and says it brilliantly. And you can tell like every frame of the comic panel is like being pieced together so intricately and delicately.
I mean, well, look, I didn't expect for a minute that I'd change your mind.
No.
I knew from the get-go that this was going to be your opinion and that you were going to stick to it. And to be honest, I've not really made many arguments for the film, because genuinely speaking, if you're talking to me from a perspective of which is a better piece of art, it is the book.
It is, yeah.
But if you're asking me for the podcast, is the book better? What's my opinion? I still prefer the movie.
No, you're weird.
I really do, and I don't know if I'm just mental.
You're mental. How can you prefer the?
But honestly, if you said to me, ultimate cut of the movie is on in that room, or there's a comfy chair in that room, sit and watch it, or sit and read it, I think I'd sit and watch it.
For 3.5 hours.
It'd take me longer to read the book.
No, it wouldn't.
No, probably not.
Not now. No, you've reread it a few times. Definitely not.
No, but I don't know.
I could read this in less than the actual theatrical cut of the film.
That's highly probable. But I don't know. I know I'm probably wrong, but I like that movie.
Probably.
I really like the movie.
No.
It's a fun time for me.
It's not. It's just this weird mess that happens. It's interesting for the first 5 minutes, then it gets really boring. A little bit interesting, then boring, then doesn't make any sense.
Do you know what I think it might be for me?
Go on.
I think it's 2 big things that are super important when you're formulating your opinion on these things. The first thing is just, it was the first one I saw.
Sure.
I saw the film before I read the book.
Yeah.
Which makes a massive difference on your initial kind of expectations.
Yeah.
And it's the music in the movie.
It's a good soundtrack, but
it's an amazing soundtrack,
a lot of the sources come from this anyway.
Oh no, absolutely,
because it gets referenced anyway. So that's just another thing Zack Snyder's copied.
No, sure, that is something I was going to bring up. There's Bob Dylan, Elvis Costello, Jimi Hendrix references in the comic book.
Yeah.
But for me, somebody who's so musically motivated,
like you could listen to that soundtrack whilst reading the book.
I guess.
You know, if that's one of your big points, you could just do that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I mean, realistically, there's no defending the film against the book. The book achieved what it meant to achieve better.
Yes, it's really an unfair fight, in all honesty, because, one's groundbreaking, one is just...
another movie.
It's just hanging on to the coattails of it, and when it came out was
But I stick by it, and I don't know why.
Huh. Fandoms for you.
Maybe I'm just being a contrarian.
Maybe so.
Well, I think we've put the comic book world to rights.
Yeah, that's it sorted. We've done our job here, Billy. We have set them on the right path of what to do. We've told them our opinions, and they will respect it.
Our opinions have been stated, and the world is a better place for it.
Absolutely. There's no threat of nuclear annihilation anymore.
If you'd like to hear more of our opinions, we do this podcast
fortnightly.
Yes. Fortnightly is the intention and the plan. Do we tell people what our next one is going to be?
Sure, I think that's cool.
Are we definitely doing what we said?
Yes, we are. Well, I hope so, because I'm like halfway through it.
Sick. Alright, awesome. Well, I'll let you announce it to the masses.
Yeah, sure. Our next episode will be Wonder. To coincide with the film that is coming out based on the same name of the
Came
book.
out 2 days ago.
Oh, did it come out 2 days ago? Oh, I didn't think it was out yet. But yeah, we will be... well, I am currently reading the book, and then obviously afterwards be watching the film. I'm quite excited about it, because the guy who did Perks of Being a Wallflower is directing it, so that's cool, I think. And yeah,
it's definitely going to be a lot to talk about.
Yes, I think so. I'm reading the book now. Currently, it's I think
it's supposed to be fantastic. I've actually not started it because I've had deadlines, but I'm going to smash it before. I'll get it done in 2 weeks.
It's a relatively easy read.
So I've heard. Yeah.
So I think you'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's incredibly short chapters as well. So if it's just like a minute or two, you could probably just go, okay, I could do like a chapter or something.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's a very
toilet book kind of thing.
Yeah, toilet book.
Awesome. No, it's going to be good, and it's a bit of a tone change from
it is a tone change from awful, gritty Watchmen.
But there's not going to be any cities being knocked down or giant blue penises
or
in
giant
Wonder.
aliens. No.
Yeah,
absolutely none. Unless, like, I've not read all of it yet. Maybe that happens.
You never know.
Maybe that happens. Who knows?
Oh God. Fingers crossed. We'll let you know in 2 weeks' time, I suppose.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, we will.
Right, let's clunk through an outro.
Sure. The email address?
That's right, we have an email address. It's isthebookbetter@gmail.com. I bet you could have guessed that, nice and easy. If you got a suggestion for something you want to hear on the show, if you want to send us a compliment or some hate mail.
Or any like questions or corrections.
Sure.
I find anything like that good to read out, just so we have that communication.
Yeah, absolutely, because I guarantee
you
we will have got a number of things wrong.
Oh yeah, no, people even me with a laptop looking stuff up, I bet we've got stuff wrong. Absolutely.
No, totally. So yeah, if you want to message into the show, we'll be glad to take a look. Maybe read your comments out on the next episode.
Read some comments out.
So that's isthebookbetter@gmail.com.
thank you very much for listening, which is now like an hour and 50 minutes long, according to that thing.
I knew it was going to be a long one today. There's so much to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. Follow Adam on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, man. At the Man of Chan for Twitter, at the Ward Man for Instagram.
Yeah, don't follow me on Twitter because I don't tweet, but you can follow my my Instagram, Heartogram Hippie. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yes, thank you very much for listening. See you later.
May the force be with you.
Always.